Thank you, Louis Free. So we'd like to invite our panelists to join us at this time. And while they are coming up to the stage, I would like to tell you all that you have the power to make a difference. You will hear today about cases that will touch your heart. And you have the opportunity right here and right now to make a difference. And that comes with social media and using our cell phones. So while you're here today, throughout the discussion, you will be hearing about various tragic cases, horrific cases of persecution around the world. And we ask you to take this opportunity to use your cell phones, use your social media platforms, tweet about these cases, let the world know that you care, because I know you do, and you have the power through your organizations to really make a difference. So with that said, it is my honor and my privilege to introduce you to our very special panel that's with us today. Also, want to let you know that all of the organizations you're going to hear about right now have provided literature that's on the outside table that you're welcome to take with you as well. So with that said, it is my honor to introduce you to our esteemed panel today. I'm going to begin by introducing Commissioner Nadine Maenza. Commissioner Nadine Maenza is the Vice Chair of the United States Commission on International Religious Freedom, also known as USCIRF. Nadine is the founding director of Patriot Voices, and Nadine was appointed by President Donald John Trump to USCIRF in May 2018 and elected vice chair in June 2019. Please join me in welcoming Commissioner Nadine Maenza.
Thank you so much.
Next on our panel, we have Peter Burns. Peter Burns is the Government Relations and Policy Director at In Defense of Christians. He formerly worked as a policy analyst for Kansas Governor Sam Brownback. Peter has also worked on Mark Rubio's presidential campaign and as an operations manager for the Forge Leadership Network. He is a Philos Fellow and opinion writer for the Washington Examiner and the Region. Thank you so much for joining us. Next, we have Philippe Nassif with Amnesty International. Philippe is the Advocacy Director for the Middle East and North Africa at Amnesty International USA. Before coming to Amnesty, Philippe worked as the Executive Director at In Defense of Christians in the Middle East, where he advocated on behalf of persecuted religious minorities. Before that, he worked at the poverty fighting organization CARE USA, the Obama presidential campaign, the White House as part of President Barack Obama's advance team, and for the mayor of the Houston of Texas. Please join me in welcoming our esteemed panel today, all fighting every single day for the freedom of others. Thank you so much. We're going to go ahead and begin our questions of our panelists, and I ask you to hold your applause until the very end. And we're going to go ahead and first find out a little bit about everybody's organization. So we'll start with Commissioner Nadine. Okay. If you could tell us a little bit about USCIRF, sure. What USCIRF does, sure. And let our audience know how they can help with your efforts.
Great. Well, first of all, how many have heard of the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom and know what we do? So it's a little bit of a mix. And I want to first acknowledge the biggest hand that went up was my colleague, Commissioner Gary Bauer. Thank you for joining us, who was also appointed by President Trump. So the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom, we were created 22 years ago when the Office of Religious Freedom was created at the White House by the 1998 International Religious Freedom Act. And so what we are is an independent agency, like a watchdog for the U.S. government, where we go abroad, we travel abroad, and we assess religious freedom conditions internationally, and then we make recommendations to our own government, to the White House, to Congress, to the Secretary of State. We don't use the Constitution. We use an international standard, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And so we do a report every year that tells that lists the countries that we're recommending changes for. And I want to make the case that we're bipartisan. So there's 5 Republicans and 4 Democrats. We're appointed by the president as well as the Republican and the Democratic leaders of the House and the Senate. We have about 20 professional staff. And so it's been a real honor and privilege, especially with this administration being so focused on religious freedom. It's been a really great partnership for us to be able to speak into these important issues and really fight for people that just want the right to practice their faith or have no faith at all. We also are very strong on just giving the people that option.
Thank you so much. Would like to ask Philippe, if you could tell us a little bit more about Amnesty International that does so much all over the world, and I'm really excited to have you with us. So please tell us about your organization.
Sure.
And I know there's organizations all over the country that people can be involved in and take part in helping with your efforts.
Sure, absolutely. No, thank you so much for first of all, for everybody for coming this afternoon on this beautiful February day in Washington, D.C. That's okay. And thank you all for the work that you do in your respective organizations. I see many familiar faces that are working very hard on the cause of international religious freedom. So, and thank you to the organizers, of course, as well. So I handle all of the Middle East and North Africa work at Amnesty International USA. So what that means is anything related to the Middle East and North Africa that involves the United States government, where I lobby the United States government. So I work with our members of Congress, I work with the White House, State Department, USCIRF, many other government entities, in addition to non-governmental organizations that work on human rights issues. International religious freedom is a human right. I say this quite often. Christian rights are human rights. Jewish rights are human rights. Muslim rights are human rights. And the same goes for every race, every creed, religion, ethnic group around the world. We advocate for persecuted people of all faiths, of all color around the world. And so my job is specifically to make sure that the United States government fully understands just how important that is and just how much work they have cut out for them to make sure that those rights are being respected both by our allies around the world and our adversaries, because we have United Nations, we have the Universal Declaration of Human Rights that we follow. We are nonpartisan, so we work with everyone everywhere. And we make sure, using our grassroots network around the country, and certainly our sections around the world, to continue to shed light on human rights abusers. And I'll go into more details to what that looks like specifically in the Middle East and North Africa, because there's a lot. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Philippe. Peter Burns, can you tell us about In Defense of Christians?
Thank you, Martha. So IDC was founded about going on 5 years ago in response to rising violence towards Christian communities in the Middle East. And really, the organization acts as we try and be a voice for that community here in the D.C. area, especially to U.S. policymakers. We have an advisory board of religious leaders from the different Eastern Rite churches in the region, and we look to them to direct us on the policies that we push here with the State Department, with the administration, and with Congress through advocacy. And then we also, a way that you guys could be involved is we also try and engage local Christian communities across the country. So an easy thing to do is just go on social media, like our Facebook page, and you'll start seeing we regularly are updating and sharing stories of what is happening to the Christian community in the Middle East. Sadly, most of them are not good stories. Most of them are bleak stories right now, but there are the bright spots as well. So do follow us on social media, and then you can get on our website, check it out, and engage through our email list. There are ways to start getting involved. And one thing that we work with, we have grassroots chapters across the country, and a way we work with them is we actually work with those communities to go visit with a member of Congress in their district and say, hey, we may not be Middle Eastern, but as Christians or as Muslims or Jewish or whatever right the person is, we care about this issue, and we're seeing this persecution going on to the Christian community in the Middle East, and we want you as our member of Congress to represent us on that issue. So that's a way we engage with local communities across the country.
Great, thank you. Commissioner, if we could go ahead and hear a little bit about, USCIRF, you've been instrumental in fighting for so many cases, and I know you work with Amnesty International and IDC on so many different cases. I would love to have you talk about Rami Kamal and
sure.
A persecuted Coptic Christian in Egypt, and tell us how you're working together with these organizations and how you've engaged Congress to also adopt the case and be supportive as well.
Great.